Hey there, everyone. Meteorologist Ryan Weekman here for our Sunday night weather hangout. It is the 23rd of November. Thank you very much for joining in for this evening. Guess what? We actually have the microphone working tonight. I know we had an issue with it last week. Thanks for hanging tough with me, guys. Wanted to double check to make sure that was working this week for us. Lots to talk about in our Sunday night weather hangout this week. Of course, we're coming up on Thanksgiving. Coming up on Thursday, we have some very windy conditions for us ahead for tonight and into Monday. Also, rain showers now beginning to pick up across the area, and an important forecast for a lot of folks that will be doing traveling over the next week, of course. So lots to get to and talk about across the entire area. Again, thanks very much for watching our Sunday night weather hangout. This is a lot of fun, and it's all because of the participation of you guys. So we'll answer some of your questions that you guys have posted on Facebook and Twitter. Those of you that are watching live, you still have a chance to ask your questions, especially on Google+. That's the easiest place where I can see those questions. If you're watching, you can just click on the Q&A button and ask, and it pops up right here on the side of my screen. If you're watching on the weather blog, which I know many of you are, go ahead and look up, and there's some great links up there where you can see me on Facebook and Twitter and ask some questions on there as well. So if this is your first Sunday night weather hangout that you're tuning into, it's basically a tireless event sometimes. As you can see here in the Storm Track Weather Center, I always think it's fun just to give you a quick tour, show you what's going on right now in the studio. Here's the Weather Center. It's been a very quiet evening so far for us here. Studio, very quiet. Check in with the green screen. Yeah, now lit up. So it's been a very quiet night for us so far, but it's starting to become breezier out there, especially if you're watching from out in the country. You can probably start to hear the wind start to whip up a little bit, especially south of Toledo. Tomorrow is when those winds will really start to increase out there, and it's all because of an area of low pressure that's going to start to strengthen over the Great Lakes the next 12 to, let's say, 20 hours or so. And with all that air rushing into the center of the low pressure, that's what causes the very windy conditions for us, and that we can experience wind gusts tomorrow, Monday, over 50 miles per hour does look possible. And something that I've been thinking about, we get a lot of wind here in Northwest Ohio a lot of the year. This will be an event that even for us, we'll say, okay, this is a very breezy day, a very windy day for us. Those wind gusts, especially on the roadways out there, will cause issues. The wind will be coming out of the south and eventually the southwest out there. So keep in mind for those tractor trailers, if you're going to be doing any traveling for tomorrow, it's going to be a tough one for those high-profile vehicles, especially when you think about a crosswind on a lot of those roadways out there. So keep that in mind. Good idea to give some extra room out there. And let's pinpoint what we're talking about with this area of low pressure. I'm going to flip the screen around, show you guys what we're looking at here, give you my screen. That's the cool part about this, giving you the tour of the Weather Center and the studio here. I'm not only going to show you what we're doing out here, I'm going to show you what I'm looking at on my screen here. And so this is a very informal way for you guys to get a look at that. And so here's the very latest with the radar that we're looking at here. Just to give you a sense, this is the Midwest. The heaviest rain is pretty much over all of Indiana, much of Ohio right now, and you can easily tell where that spin of the low pressure is pretty much coming up towards Louisville right now, western Kentucky. And this will continue to deepen as we go through the evening hours for tonight. And I want to show you this, the jet stream across the area. We'll show you that in a second, actually. Here's the area, the water vapor for us. And the low pressure earlier today was located over Oklahoma. Very rapidly, with a large area of dry air wrapping in around it, is starting to shift to the east and over western Kentucky like we just showed. Lots of moisture over the area. If you've never looked at one of these maps before, don't freak out. Don't worry about it. But I just want to show you what we're looking at here. Again, this is a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on in the atmosphere. And again, if you watch closely over the Midwest, you can really see that spin in the air. And that will be the area of low pressure that's starting to deepen across the entire area. To give you a sense here, this is one of the forecast models for us, showing how deep this area of low pressure will get over the next 12 hours. So again, right over western Kentucky right now, pretty much Paducah. Here we go through the evening hours for tonight. The low kind of goes over Chicago, central Michigan by pre-dawn hours for tomorrow morning. And then it gets its deepest over Lake Huron by about 7 a.m. for tomorrow morning, and it keeps on into Ontario during the day for tomorrow. And as the air rushes to try to catch up to that low pressure and fill it back in, that's why we should expect windy conditions for tomorrow. And a lot of this is tied to a very strong jet stream that's coming into the western U.S. So now I'll show this to you. Not too hard to tell where this one is this evening and where it'll be over the next 24 hours. Very impressive jet streak. Wind speeds over 150 miles per hour very easily in this jet stream, or 150 knots actually, coming through Ohio and the western Great Lakes, eastern Great Lakes for us. And look at this large area of low pressure. And something else to keep in mind, you can generally look at the jet stream and divide. North of the jet stream, it's cooler than average. Along and south of the jet stream, it's warmer than average. And as you can see, the jet stream's kind of going to get set up with us sitting to the north of it as we get later in the week. And so that's why I'm expecting we should see temperatures, while they're warm right now, they'll stay mild overnight for tonight. A cold front comes through after that low pressure comes through the Great Lakes tomorrow, and that's going to cool us down for a majority of this week. It's not going to be as cold as last week, nowhere near as cold as last week, but keep in mind that it is going to be chilly, and while we're enjoying some 50s right now, I think highs for the 30s will be mainly the rule for the week ahead for us until we head into next week. I'll show you what's ahead for next week coming up here in just a minute, because it does look like potentially some more warmer air will spill back into the area by next weekend and into the first week of December. We'll talk about that again coming up. Main concern with this one here, and I've had a lot of questions this evening about the strongest wind gusts for tomorrow. When are we expecting them? Of course, outside right now, the wind's starting to pick on up out there, and that will continue during the overnight hours for tonight. By tomorrow morning, the wind could be gusting 30 miles per hour. Into the afternoon for Monday, even if we get a little bit of sunshine, that'll actually help make the winds a little bit stronger. You have to remember the winds are very strong just off the surface. Some of that sunshine helps mix that wind down. And as that cold front comes across the area tomorrow afternoon, that cold front actually aids in putting some of that wind closer towards the ground. So that's why I expect tomorrow afternoon, Monday afternoon, is when we'll see the strongest wind gusts. Upwards of 40 miles per hour pretty much across the entire area. Could see sustained winds for a few hours near 40 miles per hour. And wind gusts tomorrow upwards of 50 miles per hour, even a few 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts aren't out of the question. And these aren't thunderstorms that will be coming across the area. This will be just the environmental wind. Again, think of that area of low pressure that's going over the Great Lakes. Think of it as a big sink, okay? And when you turn on the water, what does that in the sink, what does that water do? It rushes to fill in and go down the faucet. Well, with an area of low pressure that's getting stronger and stronger, essentially the same thing is happening. And so think about those winds swirling around your sink, and it's going down the drain. That's what's going to be happening with that area of low pressure again for tomorrow. And so the water, or in our case, the air, will be rushing in towards that low pressure center. And so tomorrow afternoon, I'm telling you, it's going to grab your attention, and you're going to notice just how windy that things are. And if you live out in the country, tomorrow evening as well, you'll hear it a little bit tonight, but tomorrow evening, it'll be one of those nights where it really howls out there. You know what I'm talking about if you've lived in the flat areas of Northwest Ohio and Southeastern Michigan for any number of years. These are the type of evenings out there where you can hear things rattling and shaking all evening long. Might even be enough to keep you awake for a while out there for you. So it's not to freak anybody out. It's just the way that things look for us. Again, that's tomorrow afternoon, evening, and into Monday night, Tuesday morning. By far, the strongest winds look like they'll be during Monday afternoon. And we got a cool way to show this to you with our hour-by-hour forecast. I'm going to flip the screen back around for you here. Here's the last thing that we were looking at with the jet stream right there. But I want to show you this map, and actually I'll zoom in a little bit for you to give you a better view of Northwest Ohio. And here we go for you. Of course, now I have to get my controls. There we go. So this is tomorrow morning, or actually this is early tomorrow afternoon, I should say. This is about noon tomorrow. Anywhere in the yellow, that's wind sustained upwards of 30 miles per hour. And watch tomorrow afternoon as that area, Northwest Ohio is right dead center in the middle of your screen, starts really picking up with wind gusts upwards of 45, 50 miles per hour out there. So it will become very windy. Now, keep in mind, if we were sitting on the southern shores of Lake Erie, or rather the northern shore of Lake Erie, so southern Ontario, the winds would actually be even stronger because of the relatively flat ground the flat waters of Lake Erie. Even though you'll have the big waves, it's still relatively flat compared to ground with trees and houses and other things that kind of slow the wind down. The winds in southern Ontario will be even stronger than what we see here in northwest Ohio, just because they can really start whipping across the lake out there for us. So at least we have that to our advantage. We're not sitting on the downward side of the lake for this wind event, but the waves out in Lake Erie will be very big out there for you. And again, look at this, even as we go into the evening hours for tomorrow, the wind will subside a bit, but still looking at sustained wind upwards of 25 miles per hour. Look pretty easy for tomorrow night, and that is into Tuesday morning. So keep in mind, we've had the snow out there melting, that 1 to 2 inches of snow melted. We're going to continue to get heavy rain for tonight across much of the area, around a ½ inch for many of us. Closer to the Indiana border and into Indiana, they'll get upwards of an inch of rain for tonight, and that'll really weaken up some of those trees out there. Thankfully, the leaves are off many of the trees, but it really compromises the root system out there. And if you have an exposed tree that's already kind of weak out there, the winds combined with the soggy soil make it a lot easier for those trees to topple over. So I wouldn't be shocked if we end up with some power issues for tomorrow night as well. Again, we're not forecasting an apocalypse here. You guys have seen these events before. They're very common, usually about once every year or two in the fall months for us. We get one of these strong systems that come overhead that produce these widespread winds. So you know what to expect, but just have to refresh it, because again, this will be something that will end up inevitably catching somebody off guard, not realizing how windy that it's really going to be for tomorrow. So let's get to a few questions, because that's what the fun part about this is. Again, if you guys haven't asked questions, you can ask it. If you're watching on the Storm Track Weather blog, look up, and you can see links to my Facebook and my Twitter pages. You can ask questions there right now. Once we're done with this weather hangout, look down. We've got some cool blog information down there as well. We're doing a job of keeping things updated out there. Just some weather nerd factoids, and that's probably the best way to describe this Sunday night weather hangout. Gives me an ability to just nerd out a little bit. I can't always do that on air. We only have a minute or two to really give you the forecast, so this is kind of a fun chance for us to really talk about things. Julie had a question. Of course, we got Thanksgiving coming up here. Wanted to know after Thanksgiving. We're talking about Black Friday, of course. What does the weather look like if you're going to be standing in those lines? Well, it's not going to be warm. I can tell you that one. Temperatures Friday morning will very likely be in the 20s, perhaps even in the teens in a few spots. The good news is the winds probably won't be very strong. There may be a little bit of fresh snow out there from Thursday. It's not going to be anything heavy. It'll be under an inch. But it will be a very cold day for Black Friday, so keep that in mind if you're going to be out there trying to get some good deals. It's going to be a little bit chilly for us this year to try and nab some of those better deals out there for us. In fact, we can give you a look at things. Actually, we won't. I'll tell you what, we won't do that. But just to give you an idea, 20s look very likely. Teens even potentially will be out there for us as we start Friday morning. Again, looking ahead for us here. If you have plans to do any traveling, I hinted to this on Twitter out there last week that the pattern was setting up for a big east storm sometime the second half of this upcoming week. I get it. That's vague. Weather is very difficult. But now that we're getting closer, the details are becoming more apparent that it looks like this will be an East Coast storm that could dump some heavy snow across the big metropolitan areas. We're talking New York, Philly, up towards Maine as well, Boston. Could see some heavy rain, snow that could end up causing travel delays at some major hubs and cause a ripple down effect there. It looks like Thursday Thanksgiving will be the big day where we'll see potentially those travel issues with the hubs causing the bigger delays with that East Coast nor'easter that will develop for us. So just keep that in mind if you're doing traveling around here. If you're going to be traveling within 200 miles of Northwest Ohio, things should be just fine for you here. But over on the East Coast, that's where they're likely to see the bigger issues from that headache for Thanksgiving. And of course, the national media will start picking up on it on Monday, saying major headaches and blah, 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 blah. Just letting you know right now, keep that in mind. That will be out there for you here. Now, I promised you that I would have some information as far as the warm-up into next week. At this point, it does look likely that we will see some form of a warm-up into early next week. And what we're talking about is a good chance, there we go, for a warm-up across much of the country. Now, keep in mind, it can't get much colder, right? So at least compared to what we experienced last week. So this isn't unexpected for us, but it does look like the first week of December may end up being nice and toasty for us across much of the U.S., talking about 40s and 50s potentially for the first week of December. That doesn't mean we're done with the cold for the rest of the winter. In fact, many times we see this. If we have a cold November, the first week or so of December, we kind of warm things back up. It's all about Mother Nature kind of balancing herself out. So we still have yet to see what winter has to hold. If you are curious about my winter weather forecast and you're watching here on the Storm Track Weather blog, look down on the links and you'll find I have posted a winter weather forecast. You can check that out on there, and I know that a lot of folks are curious about what our thoughts are for what we're talking about as far as the snow potential and the temperature potential out there for us over the winter ahead for us. So that looks like a lot of the questions that I had from folks as far as on Twitter beforehand. But I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions. Again, if you didn't see it, if you weren't hanging out and you wanted to see what the Weather Center looks like, there's a lot of computers and stuff. We basically nerd out all day. That's what we do. That's kind of our job. So I wanted to give folks that were watching on Facebook, give you guys a chance to ask some questions, because I know a lot of you guys had some questions. We had a question on here asking, what does the winter outlook look like? How convenient, right? This was posted on my Facebook page. If you guys want to know what the winter weather outlook is, what I posted is, look down. It's probably going to be at least 10 to 15, probably about 10 to 15 posts down. You might even find a link because I think I posted it in early November. You can find it down there, and it'll show you what we're talking about as far as the winter ahead. Overall, looks like it will be a cool winter for us, and the potential is there for about near average snow. But go on there. There's a lot more details. We talk about the wild cards that are out there. Of course, trying to forecast a season ahead is a very difficult thing to do, but we give it a chance, and we'll let you know really what to expect out of that forecast, where there can be some deviations, where things can change. We're not magicians here. We're forecasters. We get things wrong, but we try to highlight all of the potentials as far as why it could be warmer than normal, why it could be colder than normal. Just give you guys the facts and let you know what we're thinking as far as that goes. Again, I know a lot of you are watching this on the blog. We have a couple comments on here, so I want to get to some of those to see what your questions were. Ask, what will Wednesday night into Thursday morning look like for those of you traveling? Again, that's kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Wednesday night into Thursday morning, if you're going to be traveling across the area, let's just say within about 200 miles, so Cleveland, north of Detroit, Chicago down to Cincinnati, things look pretty good for Thursday. There's going to be some light snow, especially potentially some lake effect snow in Michigan. Those would be your usual suspects, nothing too uncommon for this time of the year. It doesn't look like any major systems right now will be coming across the Great Lakes. So it'll be a little bit chilly for Thanksgiving, but overall I don't think it'll be anything that we can't handle for us here. And one person, Ed, was asking as well, what do we think about the potential for, there's a high wind watch technically in effect for half of the area. The other half of the area, there's a wind advisory in effect. What do we think about the different advisories and things? It's just the different National Weather Service offices that go ahead and issue. We're kind of bisected in half here in Ohio. Cleveland does Toledo, Bowling Green, Findlay, and East, and IWX, which is Northern Indiana, does Napoleon, Wauseon, down towards Putnam County and west. So sometimes we don't get exactly the best coordination on the watches, warnings, and advisories and things, but I'm telling you, all across the area tomorrow, the winds will be very gusty, especially during the afternoon. Upwards of 50 miles per hour looks very possible. Sustained winds of 35 miles per hour look very possible for tomorrow afternoon. If you wake up and it's a little bit breezy, you might say, oh, I thought it was going to be a lot windier than this. Trust me, by the afternoon tomorrow, it's going to grab your attention out there with how breezy that things do look out there for us. So keep that in mind. All right. Wrapping up, what we got? 20 minutes. That was a pretty good Sunday night weather hangout. We're going to be on at around 11:35 this evening on WTOL, thanks to football that went a little bit late for this evening. So keep that in mind. Hope to see you guys there again coming up at 11:35. If you haven't already done so, go ahead, like me, Facebook and Twitter. You'll get lots of links, lots of useful or sometimes useless, but I'll give it to you anyway, weather nerd facts from around the area. And we do these Sunday Night Weather Hangouts almost on a weekly basis, hence why they're called Sunday Night Weather Hangouts. So with that, we'll wrap things up and hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving and holidays. Thank you very much for joining me, whether you watched live or on tape delay. Appreciate it, and we'll see you. Hope you have a great week. Take care.